Hello everyone. So today topic is, as you know, the store processor. So firstly, like a store processor on IBM, basically we will focus on that, and we will see the advantages of that and the implementation of a store processor. So yeah, so we're going to start that. So yeah, so today we will cover some points related to the store processor. So firstly, we will see what is a store processor. Then we will see store processor on IBM I, and after that we will see how like can we define a store processor on IBM I. Some important keyword that use in a store processor, or we will recommend you if you use that keyword, so it will help you. And after that we will see some basic example of a store procedure. Then we will see how we can compile a store procedure on our IBM I, and after that we will see how we can call a store procedure. Then in the last we will see catalog files that are important when you are working with a store procedure. Okay. Yeah. So first thing, what is a store procedure? So a store processor is a prepared SQL code that you can save in your system. So as you guys know, we can save a Java program, we can save a RPGLE program, we can save a CL program, as like you can save a SQL code also. And after that, you can pass some input parameter in that code, and you will take some output parameter, and like you can do some process on that, and you can return an output parameter also and a result set also by that store procedure. So coming on the first point, again, a store processor is a prepared SQL code that you can save in your system. Then a store processor is a group of SQL statement that accept some input parameter, perform some task, or may not return a value as an output parameter or result. So a store processor like return output parameter or a result set also. That I will show you on the lab machine. We will see the practical of that. Okay. Now store processor on IBM I. So some like we have difference in a store processor on IBM I. A store processor may define a store processor either a SQL processor or an external processor. Okay, so on IBM I we can define a external processor also. So what is that external processor? So external processor can be any supported high level language program. So it can be a C program, it can be a Java program, as well as RPGLE program also. Okay, the processor does not need to contain a SQL statement, but it may contain SQL statement also. So as I told you, like we can call a third-party program also, RPGLE program also. So it's not mandatory in the store processor. You will use only the SQL statement. Okay. So how to define a store processor? So first thing, to define a store processor, we need to use create keyword. Okay, in the below you can see an example, create or replace processor. So for creating a store processor, you need to define, like you need to use a word that is create, or what is replace. So suppose if you have already that store processor in your system, so if you are using, like you are recreating that store processor, so it will replace the existing and it will create a new store processor. Then some parameter. Firstly, in parameter. So in parameter means you are using a keyword in and you are giving a parameter, means you are taking some input in that parameter. Then after that, on the line number 3rd of the parameter list, we have out keyword. So if you are returning a output parameter, output value, so you can return that value as a output parameter. Then in the last of the parameter list, we have in out. So in out means you can take a input parameter as well as you can return a value, you can return a result, okay, by that parameter. Okay. Now this is an example. Of course, I will show you that on the IBM I lab machine also, but little bit we can discuss here. So till the parameter list we have already discussed, and after the parameter list we have closed by the bracket our parameter list, and after that we have a language SQL, means this store processor will contain only the SQL code, only the SQL query. After that we have a one keyword, that is program type sub. So this is a not, firstly, this is a not mandatory keyword in a store processor. Then why we use that? So if you do not use the program type sub in a store processor, then the store processor object will create as a PGM, not a service program. Then why we are creating a object as a service program? So basically, you can visit a IBM official website. The service program slightly performance better to a PGM compared to a PGM. Because why? Because IBM improving their microcode related to that. So this is a different thing. But we will recommend you always use that program type sub. So it will increase your speed. So we have a specific keyword after that. So always we will recommend you, again, this is a not mandatory thing. Then why we use that? In our AS400 system, always your object name and the source name always should be match. So if you are not using a specific keyword here, then the object will create by a random name. Random name means some numeric value, some combination of words and number, they will create that object. After that, we have a dynamic result set 1, means I am returning a result set, a set of a set of value. I am returning a result set 1. I am returning a result set only 1, but you can increase that value also. You can return result set 2 or 3 also. It's not mandatory. You can increase the value. Yeah. Then I have already discussed that keyword, some important keyword in a store processor, specific program type sub language SQL. Yeah. Then we can go through the compiler option. So whenever you can going to compile a store processor, at that time you can also give that compiler option, but you can define that compiler option in your code also. So we have some compiler option like comment, dynamic user profile that are related to the prepared SQL statement or non-prepared SQL statement, means dynamic SQL or non-dynamic SQL. Date format will be the ISO, and you can debug your store processor also. So that's why debug view equal to star source. Yeah. So this is the beginning of a store processor. So in the SP begin keyword, begin keyword is will mention that we can start the SQL statement, variable declaration, and etc. So start of a program script. After that, we have begin. So means now I can start to my store processor. So we have a declare keyword. So declare means you can declare variable or cursor. Firstly, I have declared that variable, the 3 variable, and I can use that variable in my store processor. I can initialize that, and I can save some value, and it's basically on your requirement if you want to use it. After that, I am creating a cursor. It's not mandatory always you need to create a cursor, then you need to return that cursor as a result set. You can use SQL query also, but here in a particular example, I am creating a SQL cursor in which I am selecting employee ID and employee name from employee table. Okay. Now this is the error handler in your store processor, in your SQL store processor. So suppose your SQL query execute and you got some error, then program cursor will go on that. Program cursor will jump on that, and you will got the error message, and you will got the message ID SQL code, and you can return that variable as an output parameter also. That we will see in the code in the lab machine. I will show you how you can return that. And after the error handling, I am returning I'm opening a cursor. So here, firstly, I have declared that cursor. You can see that declare C1 cursor for a query. Select employee ID, employee name from the employee table. So I'm opening that cursor C1 and returning that okay, as a result set. After that, this is the end of my store processor. Okay, so when I go on the next slide, so before that I can I want to show you some practical. So I hope my like IBM my screen is visible. You can you please acknowledge that? Is my lab machine is like visible?
Yes, yes, we can see it.
Yes, it's visible.
So yeah, so far you have seen like there are two types of the store procedures that we can declare. One is the internal store procedure where you can combine a set of SQL statements together and you can execute it as a internal store procedure. And other one, as mentioned by Yogesh, you can call the external piece of the external programs which will execute at their side, at their application side, and that piece of code gets executed. So we can see these two types of the store procedures here on a practical lab session. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So the first example, firstly, I will show you like how we can create a SQL store procedure. Yeah. So as I create or replace, if you are creating a store processor, so for creating a store processor, we need create keyword, or if your store processor already exists in your system, so we need to use replace, and after that the processor keyword for creating processor, and this is the long name. You can give any name, but we will recommend you always use USP as a prefix. Why? Because it's you can see we are showing that it's a user defined store processor. So U means user, SP means store processor. So user defined store processor. So I am taking input in this variable IEMP ID, and its length is decimal 5. And this is some more parameter that will I will return if I got any error in the error routine, error handler routine. So I will return that error. Okay. And here I have defined that dynamic results at 1 means I will return the results at 1. And I have told you you can increase that value also. Specific name means always the I have like we have already discussed, always your source name, this source name. And when I compile this store procedure, so it will create object name by that name. So always source name and object name should be match always. But this is not mandatory. Why? If you do not define that, so it will take the object name a random name, a system name. Okay. Here the program type sub means it will create a service program, and service program always slightly performance like perform better compared to the PGM. Okay. Language SQL means this is my SQL store procedure. Compiler option. Okay. And this is a starting of my store procedure. Here I am declaring a cursor, and I am returning employee ID, employee name, employee address as per the input parameter. This is the input parameter that we can show at the top. We can see here, this is my input parameter. So I am returning employee ID, employee name according to that. Okay. So in that query, if I got any error, suppose it will not execute, I do not have that field in my file. So this routine will execute, the cursor will go in that, and the message text and SQL code will initialize in that values, and that I will return here because I have in out parameter. So it can give the output also. Okay. Okay. Now I am opening that cursor, open C1, and I am returning a result set. So this is a SQL store procedure. Okay. So Yoginder, if you want to add anything here, so you can add, else we will go on the
Yeah,
external.
yeah. So as mentioned by Yogesh, either you can return here as a parameter, like input output parameter, you can use to return a value, or out parameter you can use to return a value. And apart from that, if you want to return a set of result set, so that facility you can achieve with this example shown here. Yogesh, can you go on the bottom?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is the command which help to return a set of results at the front end application. They can consider this result set as a kind of data. So in that way, we can safeguard our database only this store procedure can talk to our database. It can fetch, it can perform the CRUD operation, whatever operation that you want to perform using the store procedure, and respective acknowledge that store procedure can provide to the external world. Yeah, Yogesh, please go ahead.
Okay. Okay. So this is was like a SQL procedure. And if you want to see like how it will return a value, so we can return like we can call that procedure from that IBM screen also, but I will show you from the ACS. Okay. You can see I am calling that store procedure from the ACS, and this is the long name, and I am passing that 101 as a employee ID, and this is the like some 3 parameter that we have used in the for the error handler. Okay, yeah, you can see we got employee ID, name, address that we have written as a result set. Okay, employee ID, name, address according to the input employee ID. Okay, so we have called that store procedure successfully. Okay, now I will show you the object creation of that. So work obj star hall. You can see here, this is a service program. And I will show you also if we will not consider program type sub in a store procedure, then it will create only the PGM, not a service program. Okay. So now external store procedure. Okay. So this is an external store procedure in which I am not doing much more. Basically here I am calling a program that rpgle01 program, and in the program also I am not doing much more thing, because just I want to show you how we can call a rpgle program by a store procedure. And here I am using a specific name and language. Here you can see it's not a SQL procedure, it's a external program, rpgle external program. Okay, and if I copy that long name, now I will show you from the green screen. Yeah, I have already that. You can see I'm not calling any program. If I enter that, you can see hello user. Okay. So by the SP, I am calling RPGLE program. This is the basic thing, hello user, but you can do more calculation. This based upon your depend on your requirement, what you want to do, that you can do in your program. Okay. The beauty is that you can call that program from a third-party application also. Third-party application means from a Java program, from a like a PHP or .NET, any third-party application. Okay, you can just call a store processor that will call a RPGLE program. Okay, and you can call that SQL processor also. We will see that in presentation. Okay, now again, yeah, firstly, this is a second example that I can also share. As I mentioned already, it's not mandatory to return a result set. You can return a particular value also. So in this example, I am creating a store procedure. That long name is that. Okay, and here I am taking an input parameter order ID, and I am returning order date as an output parameter. And these are 3 variables for parameter for error handling, and the other thing is similar to the first one. And this compiler option, and yeah, here slightly different thing. I am not declaring a cursor. I am selecting order date, storing into a variable. And what is that variable? So I am returning that variable as a parameter. You can see here. Okay, in that I am storing the returning value by the SQL query. Okay, order date from order table according to the input parameter order ID. Okay, so I'm not returning again. I am not returning result set. Okay, I am not creating a SQL cursor, just I am using a SQL query. So here, like, I have created a variable in my library. Okay, and I will show you the value. Firstly, I need to call that. Okay, here you can see SQL status 0, message ID 0, message text blank, means it's run successfully. Okay, and time consuming also. This takes 685 millisecond only to run. And if I check the value of that variable that I have declared, okay, I got that 2022 12/22. Okay, yesterday date. Okay, this is a example how you can return a result as a output parameter. Okay, and the third example, it's basically I want to show you if you do not use program type sub here. Okay, so what happen if you do not use the program type sub? So as I told you, if you do not use program type sub, it will create PGM, not a service program. Okay, you can see that. Okay, okay, now come the presentation again. So this is how you can compile a store processor. Firstly, just set your library. You can change the current library when, like, in which library you want to compile that, you want to create an object. Okay, and then use run SQL statement command. Okay, to compile your store processor as well, compile the SQL table or UDF. So it's like same. Okay, and if you do not use the change library, so you can give that parameter also. Okay, so this is how you can compile a store procedure in your system. So you can see I'm giving a source file, my member name. Okay, and if you do not pass that compiler option here also, so it's not mandatory commit none or debug view source, because we already mentioned that in our procedure source. Okay, user profile owner, dynamic user profile owner. So these things we have already mentioned in our source. Okay, now how to call a procedure from STRSQL, means from the green screen. So that I have already show you how you can call a procedure, and we have seen that how we can call a procedure from the ACS. Okay, okay. The most important thing is that you can call that store procedure from a third-party application also. What is the meaning of third-party application? Means your PHP, Java, C#, okay, any language. So this is a PHP code. I am not too much aware with that because this is written in the PHP, but yeah, you can understand that. Okay, this is a working code. Here I am calling a store procedure in which I am passing some parameter, and that parameter value I have set here. Okay, and it will execute. And from the backend side, we do not do the complicated thing. We do not need to pass the JSON, or do not need to convert the data into the JSON. Here we are just returning the result set or a value. Okay, and we are converting that into the JSON. In the last line you can see we are converting into that result set in the JSON format. Okay, okay, now some important catalog for the store procedure. So these are the some important catalog uh, that present in the QSys2 library. So first catalog is sysproc. Okay, that we can see in the ACS. So okay, I am giving a specific name here. If you want to give the long name, so you can pass the long name as a routine name. Okay, so I am passing a specific name. You can see the entry, specific schema, library, specific name, routine schema, or routine name. created date, who create that, body, external name. Okay. Now, second catalog is sys params. Okay. It will show you how many parameter you have in your store procedure. You can see the list here. I have that IEMP ID, input employee ID, in my procedure as an input parameter, and these three variable also as an error handler I can see here. Okay, so these two catalog are important thing. Okay, these are the some advantage of a store processor, basically reusability. Okay, so what is reusability? So reusability means, as we have already discussed, you can store a SQL code as a program. Okay, so after that, just you need to call that store processor. You do not need to write SQL statement again and again. If you are working in Java program, so you need to write SQL again. If you are working in backend side RPGLE program, you need to write SQL again. You do not need to do that. Just create SQL, bunch that code into a store processor. Just reuse that. Just call the store processor. You do not need to do anything. Okay. Very auto parameterization means you can some pass the parameter in a store processor. You can take the value according to that uh, parameter list. Okay, that input value. As we have seen, I was passing the employee ID 101, and I was getting the data according to that employee ID. Better performance. So when you call the SQL first time, and then it will take some time, but you are calling that store procedure again and again, suppose in a day like 20 times, 30 times. So then the result basically store in the cache. Okay, now it's perform better, and we have more thing that we can discuss in the other session if you got chance, like optimization or any other thing. Okay, and but it's perform better, as I told you by a simple example. The result will set, if you are calling that store procedure again, then result will store in the cache memory. Okay, encapsulation of business rule and policies. Okay, so from the front end side, from the like Java side, you do not need to define rules and policies. You can and you can do that thing from the backend side. And if you want to change that into the future, so you can do that into the store processor. You do not need to do like some 10 places or 20 places or 30 places that you was using that SQL code. Okay, application modelization. So now you can see like AS400 we are using from the front end side also. It's not the part we are using the IBM from the backend side only. We are working with the front end also. So it's easy way to like get your result to call your program. Okay, and share of application logic between the application. So as I told you, you can share that logic with the Java program also, with the PHP also, .NET also. Access to database object that is both secure and uniform. So we have defined the compiler option in our store procedure, and there is between the IBM security also that we will see in the next slide, how it's secure and uniform. Consist data set modification. Okay, so these things like I will discuss deeply in the next slide with the diagram. Okay, that two bottom things. Yeah, so first benefit. Okay, so this I have mentioned here because I want to show you why you need to write a store procedure if you do not have too much technical knowledge. But you can think like that. Suppose store procedure is a group of SQL query, then why use store procedure? So if you have SQL query that you are writing repeatedly, means over and over, save it as a store procedure, then just call it, execute it. Okay, that's why I like that. Data access layer. So what is data access layer? So these 2 points we have discussed. Okay, access to database object both is secure and uniform. So why it's secure? So what we are doing now, in some application, we are using embedded SQL. Embedded SQL means we are creating tables, views from in the backend in our IBM I, and we are using SQL query on the Java application, PHP application. Okay. So basically, suppose if that application uh, have delete authority, means they can delete data and they can update that, or if someone have code, so they can access our IBM part also, IBM I part also. So between them, we have one thing, that is data access layer. What is data access layer? The data access layer means our store processor, user defined function, SQL things. Okay. So now what we will do, we will not use embedded SQL in the application layer in the Java program. We will come with a new concept, that is a store processor. We will use a store processor to communicate database of AS400 and Java application, or either PHP application. So now if they want to delete, they want to update, they want to select, so in the between, the data access layer will came, and we can define compiler option. We can take some input parameter. According to input parameter, we can like give the authority. According to the compiler option, we can give the authority to perform SQL operations, CURD operation on our AS400 system. Okay, so these are the thing related to the store processor.